Hi everyone, it's Mari here for Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to be creating this card that you can see here today for you, and I'm going to start off by showing you some of the paper I'm going to be using. I have an A2 size top folding card base, and I'm also going to be using this canvas paper, which is really cool. It feels like canvas. It takes mixed media really well. You don't have to prime it or anything like that, and I'm going to be using that with my distress paints today from Ranger. The colors of distress paints that I've chosen for my project today include Spun Sugar, Saltwater Taffy, Wilted Violet, and Lucky Clover. So you can see these four beautiful colors, and I just love how these coordinate together. I think they're really, really pretty. I'm also going to be using the Lovely Layers Dogwood die set, which just creates the most beautiful blooms for your project. And I wanted to use this gorgeous paper from the Simply Spring 6x8.5 paper pad. This is such a beautiful paper. It's just got these gorgeous watercolor flowers. This was definitely the inspiration for my color palette today, and I am going to be using that paper. So you can just see here I have about a 1-inch brush, and I'm just picking up those distress paints and swiping them across my canvas paper just to create these 4 strips of color. I love how those four colors look together. And now what I'm going to do is take a piece of vellum and lay that over top. And this is just going to add a little bit of unmuted nature to that paper. I also took my sewing machine and sewed around the perimeter of that vellum, and you can just see how that just adds some really nice texture. Now I am going to add this to my A2 size card base, and I've die cut that gorgeous patterned paper using the Scallop A2 card frames die. This just really creates a really pretty scallop rectangle, and I'm going to attach that to my painted canvas paper and vellum with a little bit of foam adhesive. So I've just added some foam adhesive strips to the back of that pattern paper, and I'm going to just go ahead and add that onto the vellum that is already on my card base here. So I'm just going to center that using those sewing lines to help me keep that in the right orientation. Now I'm going to take the die cut Dogwood Lovely Layers pieces. I have die cut these from white cardstock. I'm going to colorize the base with some old paper Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to add color to the blooms with some Saltwater Taffy Distress Oxide ink. I'm going really, really light with the Saltwater Taffy, doing the darkest just around the very edge and just a little light touch of color in the centers. And in that way, it's just going to add that little bit of depth and dimension to my little die cut pieces. So I'm going to set these aside once they're all colorized, and I have in fact die cut out this die set twice. So I'm going to have 2 layered bloom dogwoods all ready to go when I'm finished. So I'm just going to finish up that ink blending there, and now I'm going to add a little bit of color with that old paper, and that is just going to be tapped onto those leaves as you saw there, just to create that little bit of color. Now there is a layering guide on the Honeybee website for this dogwood set. It is super easy to layer these up. You can quite easily tell which shapes go with which bloom here. I would recommend that you layer the leaves on first. I forgot to do that. I knew that I should do that, but I don't know, I got in the zone of creating and didn't do that first. But I would definitely layer the leaves on first and then do the blooms over top. And then there's these 3 tiny little buds, which you can see I've added the Saltwater Taffy to as well. These are super cute, and these all just add the most gorgeous detail. Now there are centers for the flowers as well, and I left those white just to create that little bit of contrast on the ink blended blooms. So once I have the blooms, the little flowers, and the leaves all completed, I will just go ahead and add just a little dot of liquid adhesive to the centers of each of the blooms and add those little centers in those areas. But really love using my tweezers for this process. I think it makes it a lot easier. And of course, using my Honeybee Stamps liquid glue here to add these in, and just using a little tool here to help me pick up these tiny little centers and get those into place. And that will finish off putting that dogwood together. And I did do that same thing with the second one. I did cut off the long area of the stem of the dogwood on both of the pieces because I didn't want the stem on my project. And so I've trimmed that off, and now I'm just adding foam adhesive to the backs of this one here. And that is going to go on the top, in the top area, and just layer over top of that beautiful pattern paper. And this is definitely has a really tone on tone kind of a look, but I love it. And I don't know if you can really tell on camera just how beautiful this project is. It is really, really pretty. I love the colors and how everything just works together so nicely. So the bottom piece here that I'm adding on, I'm just putting a little bit of foam adhesive on a couple of the blooms on the bottom, and then the top portion of this second dogwood, I'm going to just add some liquid adhesive there. This is the gorgeous Daisy Layers bouquet set. This is one of my favorite sets from the spring release, and I'm going to use this sentiment from that set. It says, "Enjoy your special day." I'm going to ink it up with the Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink and stamp that out onto just a scrap of white cardstock. I'm going to use the coordinating dies for the Daisy Layers bouquet set to die cut out this sentiment. And I love that there's coordinating dies with the sentiments. I think that is just genius that Honeybee does that. I think that it just makes it so much easier when you're working with these sentiments. And I'll just make sure that I have that lined up. I'll take the time to make sure I have that lined up really well. Die cut that out, and now I'm going to add 2 layers of foam adhesive on the back, just because there is already a bit of dimension on the dogwoods on the card. I want to make sure that this sentiment is a little bit higher in dimension than the dogwoods. And I just left a really logical spot there when I put those dogwoods down for the sentiment to go. And now I'm going to add just some really pretty clear sequins that just really pop and add just a little bit of extra shine and bling to the project without being too distracting. So they're just a really nice sparkle in the background. So I'm going to add 3 little clusters, one to the top of the sentiment, one to the left of the sentiment, and then one below. And just adding a few of those sequins here and there to create just that little bit of extra something. So I did use my Honeybee liquid adhesive to adhere these down, and just using this tool here to help me pick up the sequins and place them onto that liquid adhesive. Now lastly, as I like to do, I'm going to put this into my splat box and just add a little bit of white splatter to the project, and that is going to finish off my card today. So I'll show you up close what this looks like when this is finished, and that is going to be complete for today. Thanks for watching, friends. I did link up in the description box to all of the products that I used today for my project. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.